2020 budget by the Cabinet Secretary there, National Treasury Henry Rotich. We're asking you, what are your expectations? A few hours ago, we had done as just a spot check across different counties, and most Kenyans, what they're concerned about is the high cost of living, and they think that the government needs to really protect them. Come the presentation this afternoon. Well, we'll soon find out. But before we get that, we have experts here in studio with us to just tell us and to try and understand and somewhat preempt what Rotich is going to be tabling this afternoon in as far as the budget is concerned. So on my immediate left, I have Elias Wahisi, who is an economist by profession, public policy and the Defiant. I'm joined by Hilary Onami, who is an accountant and a governance expert. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so
It's 2-2-1, but hey, we can handle that. We can handle that. Now let's talk about we can handle that. Now, just to set the ball rolling. Earlier we had filed a report where legislators, a section of legislators, cautioned the National Treasury against increasing the taxes in its bid to finance the 3.08 trillion budget. And they said this is not something that they are willing to let pass because of the issues of cost of high living. Now, just to set the pace, in case you missed that particular report by our reporter, O'Brien Kimani, maybe we can just have that story set the pace of this discussion this morning. Remember, our hashtag is hashtag budget KE 2019 at KBC Channel 1 TV on Twitter, at Ray Manyara, at Hilary Onami, at Wahisi on Twitter. Well, do get tweeting, give us your feedback. What are your expectations? But just to set the ball rolling, we'd wanted to hear what has been happening as far as the budget presentation is concerned. Ahead of it, it's going to happen around 3 p.m. and we have reporters already at Parliament waiting to bring to you blow by blow what happens. And just to put that into perspective, we're already getting feedback. And if I can just set up some feedback that we got about their expectations, is that one Marurut Kemboi, this is what he had to say, because we had asked this question earlier in our earlier bulletin and asked you what are your expectations ahead of the presentation. So Marurut Kemboi said, let me try and get that. And he was saying that I think he's more of a pessimist, if I may say so. So he says, another Harlem day for the naive Kenyan citizen to expect the government to share a Mwananchi-friendly budget. Lo, and he's laughing. You know, I don't think Kenyans, what do you think? Are Kenyans really optimistic? Are we looking forward to have a budget that is going to be more Wanjiku-friendly? Maybe we can start with our opinions right there before we hear what the report that we had filed earlier. Maybe we can start off with you, Elias. Do you share your sentiments, the sentiments shared here by one Marurut Kemboi?
I don't, but of course the standard of living, as you're saying, is high. And I remember there was a time Kenyans were voted as one of the happiest lots in the world globally. And even there's a global happiness index, and at some point we are doing very well as a country. I'm optimistic personally, looking at, when you look at last year, the economy grew by 6.3%. So what we're expecting is to see that growth now coming to Mwananchi.
Trickling down.
Trickling down. Now that's the thing that we are looking forward to.
But I want to counter that. Is that the review by the World Bank has already downsized our growth, our growth projections. Yes, it grew by 6.3% last year, but now we've seen the World Bank review that growth maybe to around 5.7%, still within what government looks at positive growth, but it has come down. We are yet to tackle that. Now, we're talking about the expectations of Kenyans here. Marurut Kemboi is saying like, hey, you know what, this is just another day where Kenyans are going to get disappointed courtesy of the budget. What's your take, Hil?
Well, I want to agree with Kemboi because while the economy is growing at 6.3%, the Kenyans are not feeling it in their pocket. And that's why I think Kemboi is coming from. And as Elias pointed out, while we're expecting things to improve and trickle-down effect and the kind of investments we've been making for the past 8 years to start bearing fruit, unfortunately, Kenyans are not feeling it. The cost of food is getting higher and higher. There is no money across the country. Businesses are closing down, being auctioned. And that's the reality on the ground, that Kenyans are suffering.
So Team Kemboi here is that we have nothing to smile about. Hey, now remember we're asking you this morning, what are your expectations ahead of the presentation of the budget 2019-2020? This is pegged at 3.08 trillion shillings. Now, there's a report that was filed by Brian Kimani, just putting into perspective what legislators had to say about that particular presentation that is set for 3 p.m. Here's a clip.
It is a nerve-wracking time for the National Treasury as the budget speech hour fast approaches. All eyes will be on Treasury Secretary Henry Rotich to see the measures he will outline to finance the 3.08 trillion shillings 2019-2020 budget. Coming against falling revenue collections by the Kenya Revenue Authority, Treasury is faced by a huge task, not to burden taxpayers with more taxes, maintain economic growth and meet its debt obligations.
It is actually time to take stock, give businesses a break. After all, they have taken so much taxes and a lot has been stolen. It is time to give businesses a break, reduce the corporate tax, perhaps say to 20%. And what this does is it leaves businesses with some 10% to reinvest in the businesses, to create employment, to revamp or to create a stimulus environment, which is going to help the economy to be back on its feet.
Already, tax collection is off target with a revenue shortfall of more than 100 billion shillings as at the end of March this year. In the 2019-2020 fiscal year, the taxman has a higher tax collection target of 2.1 trillion shillings after revenue projections were revised upward by 35 billion shillings.
We do not want to discourage entrepreneurship because part of the reason people are participating in the informal market is they feel they'll be overburdened with licenses, with the tax.
Treasury expects the taxman to raise the funds through ongoing tax reforms, sealing of evasion loopholes and widening the taxpayers' base. Treasury is facing another hit, this time around coming from the National Assembly, which is threatening to thwart any attempt by the Treasury to raise taxes.
We passed a budget last year, and to date, most of the funds are lying in the ministries. They have not been used, and at the end of the day, come 30th June, we will find that some ministries will have absorbed 50%, 60%, or even less than 50%, Mr. Speaker. And that is very unfair for the citizens of this country, because development cannot succeed, or we cannot move forward with that sluggish way of doing things, Mr. Speaker.
Transparency and accountability is key in considering and approving the budget estimate. And this has been actualized this year through the comprehensive analysis of the budget estimates within Parliament. In a span of 5 years, Mr. Speaker, for the first time, in a span of 5 years, the budget has moved from line item budget to a program-based budget.
The Budget and Appropriations Committee of the National Assembly says Treasury needs to seal pilferage loopholes, nab tax evaders, and cut wastage of public funds.
It has never been adequately explained to this House why development budget is rarely well absorbed. That's a question we must ask ourselves. Across the board, development budget absorption level is always below 33%.
Treasury is turning to debtors to help fill the 607 billion shillings funding budget shortfall, comprising of 324 billion shillings from external lenders and 290 billion shillings to be sourced locally. As the clock ticks towards the statement hour, public anxiety is growing to see the new trick in Rotich's budget briefcase to finance the 2019-2020 budget without burdening an already burdened public.
Well, as anxiety is building for all Wanjiko or other citizenry, we are here this morning trying to put that into perspective. What are the expectations? What we think that the National Cabinet Secretary is going to do, especially when the issue of financing the 3.08 trillion shillings budget 2019-2020. There are so many questions have been raised in just that particular piece and has set the ball rolling as far as this conversation is concerned. Yes, we have a 3.08 trillion shillings budget. Last year it was 3.07 trillion budget proposed. And the issue of how are we going to finance this? Maybe we can start from that. how do we finance it? You've already said that we already have a deficit to that of 607 billion shillings. The taxman has been charged in collecting the bulk of it at 2.1, but we also see that KRA, rather the taxman, never meets its target. So what options are out there? Let's talk about, first of all, about the shortcomings of the Kenya Revenue Authority. Will they be different? Will they meet the target this year? We know we've had a lot of tax reforms. Have they had the impact that they were laid out for? Maybe start off there, Ellis.
Yeah, to start us off, from my own perspective, and we've done some analysis, fair to KRA. When you look at since 2000, we've been growing our tax collection cumulatively. And we can say we were at 900 billion, we reached 1 trillion, we reached 1.6, 1.7, 1.8, and now we're even targeting 2 trillion. So it means we've done a lot in terms of cumulatively being able to raise revenue. However, we've not been able to meet the target. And that is, like it's projected to raise 1.8 trillion, then you raise 1.7 trillion, which means already you've not met the target. And that has had an issue in us now having to look outside. And looking outside, I'm looking at now being able to borrow, to go back to the market and borrow, to borrow either domestic borrowing or to go externally. Also relying on grants. And the other aspect is us then moving into public-private partnerships. And those are the areas that we can tap in to be able to finance this 3.3
But now here we have the taxman that is charged with collecting this amount of money. But it has been, though you've said it's cumulatively,
absolute figures, yes.
We've been missing the targets. That's why we think of other options. Now let us look at what is happening within the Kenya Revenue Authority.
Yes.
Just a few weeks ago, we saw a few people who were arrested on issues of, misappropriation and other crimes. That is a matter that is still in court. We're not going to deliberate about it. But issues have come out and questions have been raised about how the Kenya Revenue Authority conducts its operations. Why is it meeting its targets? The issue of sealing loopholes. Towards the end of the last financial year, 2017-2018, tax reforms were introduced. Have we felt the impact yet? Hilary?
Well, to be last year, there were quite a number of tax options that the Treasury had proposed. Let's start with the Robin
income
Hood
tax. Let's start with the income tax.
Yes. Maybe a few numbers to that effect. We all know we about last census were about 40 million Kenyans. Maybe you are 50 million Kenyans now. The Huduma number statistics that were released, we about 35 million Kenyans were registered. IBC, about 20 million Kenyans that are registered on the IBC. KRA database, about 3 million Kenyans have PIN, and that contribute towards PAYE. That's the income tax bracket angle. You see, and that's for now the target out of the 2.1 trillion that they've been given. 888 billion is towards income tax. And looking at it from that perspective, has KRA how many people? 3 million Kenyans paying PAYE vis-a-vis 40 million population who are supposed to. I think there is a lot of mismatch, and we hope maybe through Duma number and others we'll be able to capture to contribute towards income tax.
3 million people contributing pay as you earn, that is pay, that is at 30%, to finance almost the three-quarter budget.
The three-quarter budget that we have. So that's the mismatch you're talking about. So maybe with the Huduma number and other incentives that are trying to loop in many people to the net, we're able to see that grow. Optimistically, maybe we are going to see an increase in terms of income tax. But that said, we know you had asked the question about the tax proposals that they were put in place last year, and we all know they proposed Robin Hood tax, for instance, on the bank transfers about 500,000 above. That one, I think, it went to the court and that was squashed. So basically, they were hoping to raise more money from that. That one didn't happen. We know about presumptive tax that was introduced at 15% on the business regime, the single business permit. it was supposed to kick in this year as people were renewing their business licenses. Then the presumptive tax of 15% will kick in. That one, I can surely for sure tell that with the outcry from Wananchi, that did not happen. So I don't think we have raised substantive amounts in terms of presumptive tax, because the existing regime, as we all know, every other county has its own revenue collection mechanism and platforms. So how then does KRA come and plug in the 15%? How many counties, for instance, charge the businesses 15% extra? We really don't have data, but I doubt there are many that implemented the presumptive tax. Now, some of the measures that we're saying, really, they introduced last year. It didn't work. Are they going to introduce again? I doubt.
I don't think they'll go. They'll take the same.
Yes.
They'll take the same route, because I mean, with these matters, and course, some of them are subjudice. They were quashed. There was a lot of noise was made about it. Is that it's about having a progressive idea, but now we are not really. Change is difficult.
Sure. Just to add on that, when talking about the number of Kenyans who registered to vote, over 19.6 million or 20 million there, Hillary has mentioned about the 3 million that are under PAYE. And of course, when you look at data again, around 7 million, when you look at iTax, around 7 million Kenyans are registered within iTax. So that means that we have like 10 million Kenyans who are able to pay tax, but are not able to pay tax. They are not paying tax.
That brings the question of tax evasion. Why haven't we tackled tax evasion? That's what I think. Why haven't we? We have the data. We have 7 million. We have 10 million Kenyans.
The issue is policy. Do we have a policy as a country, a tax policy? We don't. What we normally do every year, we come up and say, this year we have this tax proposal. Then next year again, we wait for the National Treasury to come up with additional tax proposals. But we need to have a mechanism. We need to have an overarching policy that can tell us, okay, this is the direction, the trajectory we are going as a country. And that policy will guide us now on dealing with issues of evasion, dealing with the issues now of accountability, the issues of loopholes. So that if somebody is, is siphoning, it's like you are feeling a bag that is full of holes. So every time you feel, a lot of it is going under. And that's what is happening in this country. If we fill and seal those loopholes, we should be able to raise a lot that can be, you remember Kibaki's term, what was Tunipe Huru? Tujitegemee. He started with that thing. And at some point during his regime, as a country, we were really somehow self-reliant.
Yes, there was goodwill.
There was goodwill from the people, and we are raising a lot.
Our taxes
and we are meeting the budget. The other thing we need to look at, as we look at the budget, we need to look at, as we look at the revenue, we need to look at the budget as well. Are we being ambitious? Because every year, this thing, the budget is growing.
Let's exhaust the issue of tax right now. We are there at tax, and why the tax man is ever missing its targets. We've already said that the reforms that they've introduced that have not seen the light of day because of one thing or another. That's the issue of tax evasion and those loopholes.
Yes.
And we've said we need to have a comprehensive tax policy to inform how it. But now the issue of implementation.
Yeah, that's
we may have a very good thing, a very nice thing on theory, on paper, but how do we ensure that it actually informs our tax policies, or rather how we're supposed to go? How does it inform that? Do we have the requisite capacity to ensure that it is implemented to the letter?
No, I think government has enough mechanism and machinery to implement
so that. What is lacking?
So I think initially, and we've been calling for a single identifier for quite some time, because there's a lot of mismatch in data. There's the data that the immigration has, there's the data that KRA has, and there's data that banks have and others, Safaricom has. There was a lot of mismatch of data formulation. And increasingly, they are trying to close that loop. And I think Huduma number, we are looped into it. And that was, I think, the intention.
You're being very diplomatic about Huduma number registration. Maybe we just need to ask you, did you register?
No, I'm registered, yes. I'm a patriotic Kenyan, so I don't mind. And I've been paying my taxes, so I know. I don't mind others joining in. The question is, I think that single identifier that will track people and their transactions had been missing for quite a long time, because either people will transact, KRA will not know nothing about it. Yeah. So I think that increasingly bringing in more people to the loop And with that data and big data analytics and everything, the government is able to track who is making what, and are they paying their fair share of taxes to support government operations.
So us to compile the data that we have so that we know how many of us are within the threshold.
Exactly, yeah.
So the issue of data.
It's
so
integration of data.
Integration of data might actually be the question, maybe the answer to know exactly, so that we can know who pays, who doesn't.
Yes.
Good. Now we've seen that with the new reforms, with the new Huduma number, as you said. He's a patriotic person. So am I, and I'm sure Elias is too. But hey, we're not here to discuss Huduma number. Now, there's the issue of, we've done all this. The question of the data to know and increasing, or rather widening the tax base to include the informal sector.
Yeah.
This is something that we've been saying for the last 2-3 years. But now experts have come out and said that we need, first of all, even as we refer to rope in, or rather widen the tax base to include the informal sector, have we fully defined who falls in the category of the informal sector? For instance, someone who is referred to as informal sector is someone who earns 500,000 per annum, right? Is that Wanjiku really? Some quarters, actually per month, Is that Wanjiku really?
No, we talk about...
Do we need to redefine who falls into that category of informal sector?
Yes, and that's why I said in my remarks that we need a tax policy. Because the tax policy will be able to define, first of all, when you talk about income, what is income? So that you are able now to categorize income. Now, once you categorize income, you then come to categorize taxpayers and the sectors of the economy. The informal sector has been one of those, I can say, monsters that we've not been able to really deal with. But it implies we can talk about people who are doing businesses. And when you go all over the country, there are so many people doing businesses, making millions of money. They are still Wanjiku, but they are doing businesses. They are not in the tax net. They don't pay PYE. They don't pay.
They're not in the formal sector.
They're not in the formal sector.
Pay as you earn.
Yes.
They don't.
And that's why.
I think, just to support you, to me, I think for those Kenyans that have been paying, and you know, all of us pay tax in one way or another. So through a VAT or through excise or something, airtime, when you call, actually you're paying taxes. A part of it goes to tax. So I think this idea of formalism or for informalism in regard to money, 1,000 Kenya shillings is 1,000 Kenya shillings, and it doesn't matter whether you are either employed or you are in business. So I think that definition of what income is critical and important, because if you want to categorize me as formal because I'm employed by government or by institutions that are known, vis-a-vis, and you know, we are all making money in one way or another. So I think it has come to a point where they employ people. We really need to define our basket. And we need to. The point I was making is that we have come to a point that we can no longer rely on taxation of the middle class or the formal sector toward supporting our budget. We need to expand that base. I think and you and I, maybe that are employed, really feel the pinch. And there's so much we can stretch this card of people towards taxation. And that's why people have called for reduction in either corporate tax or other in PAYE, reducing the bans, so that they need to start feeling the rebates to spur economic growth.
Now, you've talked about something that is very important, especially when we look at government, or rather Kenyans' ranking in terms of ease of doing business. We did very well in the index, and one of the things is that we have a conducive environment to do business. And now, this year, we've seen businesses close down, and they're saying the reason why we're closing down is we do not have more business. And if there's business are being given to foreign multinationals, that we're getting undue competition from foreign multinationals. The issue of corporate tax. We've seen their PKF, a guy there, Mburugo, saying that it's a high time that businesses breathed, or rather took a breath so that they can continue. Now let's talk about the dynamics of corporate tax and how it is affecting the business scenario. Mr. Elias.
Our corporate tax is one of, it is competitive in the region. What we saw last year in the finance bill was there was that reduction in electricity bill, so that so that manufacturers can go and claim when it comes to the bills they incur in terms of electricity and all that. That was one of the issues that we did to be able to spur manufacturing, to spur the corporates to be able to make business. However, we need to think of a regime where the businesses can be supported in this country in terms of giving them incentives. We need to talk about incentives for business. Incentives, if maybe they employ a certain number of people, you give incentives. Incentives in terms of their contribution to the GDP. Incentives when you classify those businesses in terms of the sectors. That is what we need for the corporation, for the corporates in this country.
But someone would argue and say that
Yes.
government did come up with some incentives targeting the business sector, especially creating special economic zones where business can set up. Someone would argue that yes, we have incentives, but are we feeling the impact of the incentives?
The other problem we've had, just before it comes in, the other problem we've had as a country is there's a big problem of pending bills.
Pending bills.
And the pending bills comes in where a lot of these businesses supply to government. They supply to county governments, they supply to national governments. However, as we speak, the government owes this business over 300 billion.
Yes.
So what happens is, I've supplied to a tune of 2 billion to government. I'm unable to pay my employees. I'm unable to meet other costs. What happens? We shut down. So we need to start, at first as government, the government needs to start paying suppliers, paying small, medium enterprises. When we do that, yes.
I agree on to that, and I think it has also brought on, with the issue of the rollout of the new currency, the CBK governor came out strongly and said that now it's going to be actually illegal for you to withhold payment to someone who is due to payment, because if you don't pay the person, the supplier, how then are they supposed to do business?
They close shop.
Yes, we'll talk about that, but now we're talking about corporate tax in light of the current business environment. Yes, we've been ranked well, or we register in good time, but now the issue of corporate tax and how it is impacted on business.
Thank you. Two things. One, corporate tax, I think it's good to note that corporate tax has been in the decline over the past 3-4 years. And last year and towards the last quarter, you saw actually many companies, and actually this quarter, either looking from corporations, maybe at fourth quarter, others government quarters, many corporates first quarter, many companies issuing profit warnings, meaning that they're going to report losses. Others are shifting base to Ethiopia, and because of favorable working and maybe a business environment. I think two things here. We have done well in the ease of doing business. It's time we look at the cost of doing business.
Good.
Because at the national level and at the county level, and I'll tell you, because corporates county level, as the national government is looking for them towards corporate tax, at the county level, the county governments are also looking for them for quite a number of myriad of taxes that go along with it. That's an issue we need to discuss as a country, because while you're doing good in East, the cost of doing business is it's quite high. And he has mentioned a question about pending bills, and a lot plus the access to credit. You know, many businesses are not accessing credit because the government decided to also go borrow, and the interest rate, I hope we'll talk about it sometime later, because it's crippling in the businesses and corporates from getting credit, which is a key factor in enhancing their liquidity. So I think we need to really look at it. In terms of corporate tax, it's been on decline. As he's saying, we need to incentivize and look at our businesses and our corporates right now in this business budget.
Would harmonization of the corporate tax between national government and county governments, bring an ease? What do you think? If corporates at the county level are also being sought, as you said, harmonizing this particular, requirements for businesses?
Well, maybe just to clarify that at the county level, it's not like they're required to pay corporate tax. But I'm saying, in addition to corporate tax, at the national level, there are other taxes and levies and fees that they pay to the county governments that is eating into their profits. Yeah.
But then you'd say that that's the cost of the devolution. Yeah, that is what would argue, because that's the cost. That's the cost.
No. I don't.
somewhat. Look at it this way. We have said that we're taking development machinery. And for us to develop our counties at a county level, we have to chip in. And there's also now the issue of the county revenue allocation. We're going to come there. Monies to the counties and how we are using this money. But now, just to move away from the issue of the conducive business environment, we've said, yes, the pending bills and payments and all that, but now the creation of the special economic zones to support business. What's your take? Just an overview. I know we've diverted now from matters budget, we've just come to the environment, the ease of doing business. What do you think?
My take, this has been a long-standing debate, especially on the contribution, starting with the EPZs, in terms of, are they really adding value to us as a country? And the thing is, these entities are given, they are like tax holidays for you to be able to set up and then to be able to absorb our people, and then you produce. After a certain period of time, you are deemed to have established, then the taxes then kick in. What happens immediately after the tax holiday? They shift.
They close shop.
They close shop, so that they benefit during that window. Then once the window is closed, they close. So we end up not benefiting from those EPZs. We hope the special economic zones, because their model is totally different. Some of them are along like the SGR, where we're creating those special economic units for trade. The major essence is for them to create jobs. As we manufacture, create jobs along that line. In the long run, it could be important if they don't go the model of the EPZs. For me, that's the challenge. If we go the EPZ way, we won't really benefit from the special economic zones.
No, I think it's a way to go. SEZs is a way to go. We have learned from EPZs and the like. Because essentially what is lacking is infrastructure towards that. Imagine you are being a business. You're not going to incur either the cost of transport because the infrastructure already been created. You know, that's the ideal that we are hoping for SEZs. That as they kick in across the county governments, and every other county is mandated to that. As a unit of development, county governments should be units of development, and to attract investments to the country, they need to create that infrastructure. So pulling together in terms of access to road network, to transport, to power, to water, to sewer, all these services, if the government is able to consolidate all of them there at a given location, then businesses will find it easier to transport their goods to whatever it's manufactured within those special economic zones. It will be what they call economies of scale. Yeah, it will be pulling together, consolidating all those factors. Instead of you just plugging into some corner, there's no access route, there's no water, there's no power, there's no electricity, there's no all those government services within a single location. So it will be quite important for us for government to prioritize and make this SEZs become a reality, because it will really save in terms of cost of doing business.
Now, we have a 3.08 trillion shillings budget. Taxman has been charged in collecting 2.1. We've already seen, yes, cumulatively we're growing, but we're missing the targets. So what options are out there? We've seen here legislators saying that, hey, we're not going to stand you increasing taxes. And I'm sure when they're saying taxes, they're really focusing on VAT and the issue of pay as you earn. What other options are out there for Rotich and his buddies come this afternoon?
Yes, you can still meet the 2 trillion without increasing the taxes. As we said, if you're able to bring in these other taxpayers who are not paying, and we had hoped the presumptive tax would really work. As we speak, only 3 counties are able. You know, the way presumptive tax works is you are charging 15% on the license or the single business permit. And these are obtained at the county level. So that if I register to work in, to operate in Mombasa County, for instance, I pay single business permit to Mombasa County. Now, it's scary to work on a platform with Mombasa County, so that as I come to pay the single business permit, I'm able to as well pay the 15%, which is the presumptive tax. Now, that has not materialized. So if we're able to to actualize that particular platform, we'll be able to raise the 2 trillion.
So you're seeing a reintroduction of the presumptive
No,
tax?
it's there. It's there. The only thing is that it's not worked.
It's not working.
It's not working. It's not worked because we've not finalized the coordinated mechanism between the KRA and the county governments. Secondly, if we seal the loopholes, I'm talking about raising the 2 trillion without increasing the taxes. If we see those loopholes.
What loopholes? You know, we're
the loophole is corruption. No, it's corruption.
Let's call it as it is.
It's corruption. It's corruption. Recently, you saw people.
Corruption.
Yes. If we deal the animal of corruption in tax collection, not the wider corruption.
There's a wider corruption. This thing.
The corruption is the
in
the revenue collection. That will be able to save us. The other thing is we'll then have to look at the domestic market and domestic and external borrowing as well.
Now, before let's not get to borrowing because we already have a deficit that we need to plan that at 6.07 billion.
Expenditure rationalization.
Expenditure. Dealing with how we spend.
How we are spending, because it seems we have all these wish lists. We want to spend, but we need to look at, are there items that we can say we are reducing expenditure, especially at government level, hospitality
prioritizing
industry.
our expenses.
That's what we need to do.
Let's hold it at that. Hillary.
Yeah.
What options are out there? We've had 3 or 4 from him. Then we can go down with them and see what's happening.
I think there are really 2 options, 2 or 3. One for to fund the budget, and I think we are looking at domestic earlier. I think we are able as Kenyans to fund our budgets. The thing is, our utilization and expenditure, as he's putting it, is a big animal in the room here, because definitely we are able to collect so much, but utilization of the same is in question. We try to put in systems and mechanisms. If Miss, for instance, as the Auditor General will keep saying, it's like an highway. We know what has checked in, and we can able to trace from exit 1 to 10 and how the funds have been going. We have had issues with IFMIS, and we introduced expenditure rationalization mechanisms, either reducing consumption, reducing the trips, reducing flowers in the offices, tea and others, and per diems. We all know that, of course, maybe they say the pay is not as high, but the per diems and others, we have made either Naivasha, Mombasa, and other these locations our meeting locations, our office locations. You see, trying to rationalize our expenditure, trying to close in and just deal with the corruption. I think there's so much. We say we're budgeting for a third of our budget. For the 2 trillion, a third of it will go to corruption. As in, if we just steal that, we're able to see more services to Kenyans. I think it's a question about dealing with our tax avenues in terms of income tax, just looping as many people to support that, and that it accounts for almost 80% of our taxes. If we're able to just get in more people, we're able to raise that money. If we're able to reduce VAT, because VAT it's something that cuts across everyone equally, for both the rich and the poor. Try to increase local consumption and dealing with illicit trade, because some of it will come with a good measure. We have this a lot of evasion within the system, both facilitated by the administrator themselves and by the crazy Kenyans that we are.
I think from what I've heard, take home, correct me if I'm wrong, for you the options here is that the taxman can indeed meet this target.
Yes.
If they seal the loophole, which is, let's just call it as it is. If we do away with corruption in revenue collection, as I said, we're not going to look at the bigger corruption. I don't know if we have a small corruption.
No, what I'm talking about,
let me just put
corruption in revenue collection, and there's corruption within the economy. Yes.
Now let us look at that and put it just directly into perspective. We've said that we are going to increase the tax base. It's possible if we redefine what income is, to get a tax policy that defines how we go about it. But now the onus now fully falls on the authorities that be to ensure that this money is collected is used properly.
Yes.
But then, question is, us as a public, what are we doing to ensure that these people that we've given this mandate to plan with our money that we've contributed, that are actually called to book? We've seen what the Auditor General has been saying, but what have we done as a general public? Are we having public participation? Are we aware? Elias, I can see you nodding.
Yeah. It's a big thing, the issue of utilization of resources. And for me, the Constitution is very good for us. When you look at Article 1, you look at Article 10 of the Constitution, you look at Article 201, it talks about principle of public participation. But I think there's a lot of apathy from Kenyans. We are not participating in the processes, and that's something that we need to take home. We need to participate, one, in the budget-making process itself, in setting priorities. For instance, how many Kenyans participate in budget hearings? When they say, we have budget hearings here, I want to get your views on agriculture sector, I want to get your views on health. Very few Kenyans participate. We've left it to the elite, to the few people. We need to participate in the budget-making process itself. And then secondly, we need to participate now at the budget monitoring. Budget monitoring, I'm looking at whenever the Control of Budget gives reports quarterly, reports on budget implementation at the county level and the national level. How many Kenyans again participate in really looking at those findings and engaging their members of parliament, engaging their county assemblies and asking them questions? You guys, there's this report. Where are we? Have we followed up on these issues? The Auditor General has raised pertinent issues around impress management, around documentation of records and all that, in terms of utilization of resources. Have we engaged? And then there's the PAC, Public Accounts Committees at the County Assembly and Public Accounts Committees at the national level. They also offer those opportunities for engagement. So there's a lot of scope for us to engage, and I think that's where we need to put a lot of pressure on our elected leaders, to put pressure on the people who are really managing our resources so that they live within the constitutional principles. What's happening in these countries, there's a lot of violation of Article 201 of the Constitution in terms of utilization, prudent utilization of resources, but we are not doing a lot.
We are laissez-faire.
Yeah, but I think there are models that have worked. For instance, Makweni model, that the citizens are really engaged in terms of setting their priorities, trying to set the kind of projects they want. And the governor has really made it sure that those priorities that are set from the ward level to the county level are implemented. And I think, as we said, oversight mechanisms. Yeah, I think we are increasingly, yes, the Auditor General makes those responsibilities, but how are the county assemblies adequately following up on those recommendations to make sure that the executive is put to check? We have seen a number of places where the assembly and the executive are just one.
But that also that calls, just in addition, the absorption rate of the development budgetary allocations to the county is dismal. Why so? Is it because that within the counties themselves, the leadership are not speaking in the same voice? Or why we think, because counties are returning monies to the exchequer? Two things.
I think one, because the transfers from the national government are quite erratic. National Treasury, I think as at now, you saw that quite a number of counties are yet to receive almost 60% of their allocations because the national government transfers are erratic. And when these monies come, they prioritize in paying salaries, they prioritize in their recurrent expenditure. Yeah, so development projects will always suffer. Second thing is about the kind of wage bill that county governments are saying, because they inherited so much, and we've gone through quite a number of counties, and you'll find that even within health, you'll find almost 80-90% goes straight to staff and recurrent expenditure. Very minimal towards development.
Yeah,
I think it's a priority. Yes.
The ballooning wage bill in the national government, These are some of the issues that we are dealing with.
Yeah.
Well, if you're tuning in this morning, we're just trying to preempt the budget of 2019-2020, where National Cabinet Secretary Henry Rotich is set to present this document this afternoon at 3 p.m. at Parliament buildings. We have our crew there that is on standby waiting to bring you blow by blow account. Remember that this is a 3.08 trillion budget, and we're already working with a deficit that the Treasury needs to plunge, that is, or rather plug it at 607 billion shillings. It's going to look for that money domestically and externally. What is going to be the ripple effect of that deficit and how we're going to get it? Well, we're still going to keep that we're going to put that into perspective in not too long. Remember, our Twitter handle is at KBC Channel 1 TV, at Ray Manyara, at Hilary Onami, at Wahisi. Keep it coming. Let's talk about the budget. What are your expectations ahead of this particular budget? Ramaguko is on the other side of the studio. He's just getting ready to just tell us what your feedback has been. Remember, we are asking you, what are your expectations? Earlier on, we sampled some of your views, and what Kenyans are saying out here is that they want the government to just keenly look into their needs and wants given the high cost of living. We've just heard from our panel experts here saying that indeed the cost of doing business is quite high. Questions here are about as to why the rate of absorption of county development funds is still very low. The issue here that has come out from a team of experts is that maybe due to the erratic transfer of these monies to the county level. But hey, we know there are other issues that are underlying there. So do keep it. Let's sample. Let's have this conversation. Let's know, because there's need to have public participation in as far as budget, actually from the budget making process. But because it has already been done, let us try and preempt and see what we can do for the future. So Ram, I don't know if you're ready on the other side of studio so that we can sample what our viewers have had to say about the budget 2019-2020. And when we return, we're going to be focusing on the issue of debt. Are we in too much debt? How do we handle that debt? Over to you, Ram.
Yeah, thank you very much, Regina. And just as you've said, the hashtag is budget 2019, just to sample about what people are saying concerning this, which will be read in the afternoon in Parliament by the CS Rotich. Remember, we are having estimate of 3.07 trillion shillings here, and just to have a breakdown, remember we're having it goes in from the national government, where we have 1.68 trillion. The consolidated fund service gets 962 billion shillings. The county government gets 372 billion. The parliament gets 42 billion. Judiciary gets 17 billion. All coming up to a total of 3.07 trillion shillings. Now, this is what you're having, but remember there is a deficit of over 300 million shillings here. And just a tweet by Ahmed Nasir Abdullahi says Kenya's annual budget is a senseless ritual that has no relevance to the majority of Kenyans. The 5% that wait for the budget with palpable trepidation, and those who have secured and loaded their deals into the budget, this evening they will toss to an quote and unquote good all-round budget. That is a quote, tweet by Ahmed Nasir Abdullahi. At Kanyi Gioko says, agreed, it's only in Kenya where grand corruption is planned and budgeted for. The EACC needs to follow this budget closely and keenly. All 2019-2020 corruption deals are in there. And that's one tweet here that maybe our panelists can be able to respond to when it comes to corruption. This budget, are we talking about budgeting for corruption or budgeting for development of the country? Now, at Malik Oyudu Otiende says, there is corruption in that budget and the authorities know Rotich will give Kenyans kizungu mingi, but bottom line, the economy is depressed and in every allocation money will be lost. At D Haj Dynasty says, hashtag budget KE 2019, but it's more of hashtag loans KE. All right. At Ben Wafula, why a 3 trillion shillings budget? Why the sudden rush to do every project now? Are there people who want to be multi-billionaires by force because Uhuru's term ends? Why is it that only a tiny fraction of the budget is being sent to counties, yet that's where real development should be? All right, now brings into the perspective about allocation of funds to the counties. Is it something that we should put a question mark on? All right, we have at Mwangi John says, with the deficit of, oh, sorry, it's been lost there. All right. With deficit amounting to billions of dollars, what a shame, a ballooning budget with zero impact on common mwananchi. All right. Do you feel, and that's the question, do you feel that this budget that you're having will have an impact on you as an individual from the common mwananchi perspective, with the perspective of the Wanjiko that is, feeling the pinch of this budget that we are having? All right, so those are the tweets that we're having. Finally, at Gitao, Gitao says, Kenyans on Twitter reading the Bible in a bus is not recommended. Look at it as a storybook with regards to the budget 2019. It's all a story. Those are the tweets. The hashtag, Good Morning Kenya. Over to you, Regina. At Regina Manyara Gitao is the handle, at Ray Manyara, at Ram Aguko.
Read the budget as a storybook and like a Bible. Well, those are Kenyans. And we've just highlighted that Kenyans have no goodwill as far as tax payment is concerned, because maybe we feel that we have lost faith in the powers that be because of how we are spending. Now, there's this animal called corruption here, and it has come up from the feedback that we've seen. There's someone who's asked, the 2019-2020 budget, are we budgeting for corruption or development? Then someone else also asked the question of the issue of county revenue allocation. Remember, yesterday in Parliament, National Treasury and the National Assembly were put on the spot for approving budget estimates before the two houses of the public resolve actually a stalemate on the division of revenue bill. This is despite the fact that we are also having the rate of absorption in the matters development in the counties being quite low. A mixture of so much happening, especially when it comes to the revenue allocation in the counties. But now let's tackle the cost of corruption and the overall impact that it has on the budget making process. Yeah, we've already said we have loopholes, but now there's the issue of the Kenyan, the mwananchi, the person who is supposed to feel good, tulipe ushuru tujitegemee, is saying, I am boarding. And the reason why I'm not boarding is, the question is, are we budgeting for corruption or development? So how do we tackle that? It's that antipathy that Kenyans have, because if you don't pay taxes, and people tend to think that the money is better in my pocket than in someone else's pocket. How do we address that? Because this is something, it's something that we are experiencing now, but it's going to have a trickle effect in the future. Yeah, we're already talking about tax evasion. We're already talking about people who purport to be in the informal sector, but they're making millions, so.
Yeah, it's the aspect of value for money for my taxes. The services I'm getting commensurate to the taxes I pay? And that's the big question every Kenyan, you and I, are asking. Yeah. If I'm paying this amount of taxes per year, are the services commensurate? And when you bring in corruption, it brings a lot of apathy, because I'll say, I'm just contributing for somebody else to eat, that kind of discussion. So there's a lot we need to do as a country to fight corruption. For me, it starts with culture. We need that, the culture change, that public resources, sometimes I hear that public resources in mali ya umma, and mali ya umma, it's for everybody to eat. But that should not be the case. We need to have that responsibility and prudence, as the Constitution says, and the PFM Act, to be able to safeguard our resources. What we are hoping is the accountability institutions. And the channel, we normally lose it at a place where, whenever the control budget and Auditor General raise these particular concerns, we don't act. They die off at some place. Once they are discussed at the floor of the House, they die off. But we need to move from discussing those issues from the park committees to now DPP taking action, EACC taking action, DCI taking action, and you see people prosecuted for corruption. We've seen that in different countries. The issue of prosecution, small fish, big fish, that is kind of conversation that we're having day in, day out. If we prosecute these people, if we prosecute the big fish, like 2 to 5 people prosecuted, I think this culture of corruption will die.
Just remember, when you say we are prosecuting the big fish, They're also saying they want to be handled gently when they're...
That is the issue. That is the issue. That is the
Sorry
issue.
for another day. Now let's talk about the issue of debt vis-a-vis GDP. That's currently at around 52%.
Yes.
So we, in as much as we're collecting revenue, we are spending a huge chunk of it
Towards servicing.
in servicing debt. When is it, have we hit the ceiling? I know so many experts have come out and say that we need to really check our debt appetite. What is your take?
Yeah, I want to still support them because debt is never good. Even you at any point, whether you are Mama Boga or someone else, so as long as you're owing someone something, they will always be on your neck. Yes, though at some point it's also good, because there are those elements that will inspire you. You take a loan to build yourself and build your business and stuff like that. We are not saying debt is bad. Every other country in the world has debt, and majority of people. The thing is, to what extent can you borrow? Even yourself and I, when you go to the bank, they will check on your ability to pay and either grant you, according, you may want 1 million, but your ability to pay is only 500,000, and you'll be given to that extent. As a country, we do not refute that you are able to pay, but you see, public debt, that's why it's called public debt, affects both this generation and the generations to come. A Kenyan born now has to his account a debt of 100,000 to pay, and that's the concern that we're having. Do we can't we what services do we need now that would not necessarily affect the future generation? And that's the debate that we're having. Our appetite has grown big in the last 5-10 years from today, but we need to check it so that we really don't disenfranchise the future generations because of what we are undertaking now.
Priorities.
Yes.
What you're saying is that priorities
Yes.
and sustainability of our debt.
Exactly.
But now we've seen the government has around under 43 months to actualize the Big Four agenda.
Yeah.
In the last fiscal year, 2017-2018, ministries, departments, or areas that were riddled with corruption had the budget allocation slashed. That we had Warma, we had NYS. Has it in one way or another changed the way we have done things in this financial year? Are you expecting to see this kind of reductions in places, areas that have been seen to as loopholes to spend taxpayers' monies? Do you think that this is a direction that Rotich is going to be taking this afternoon?
Unfortunately not, because we have seen an increase in NYS to some number of billions. I think the question here is, are we funding the Big Four enough?
Yeah.
Well, again, there has been discussions why the Big Four,
Well, we're still discussing about the Big Four.
Yes.
Let me focus on the agriculture department.
Yes,
Yes.
Some few weeks ago, the Galana Kulalu
yes.
irrigation was put to question. And actually what hit the airwaves was, I think 100 million was used to clear bush. And they could not quite explain why 100 million shillings was spent. So Galana Kulalu is there. We are yet to see the proceeds of that. And agriculture is one of the main pillars in the Big Four agenda under food security.
Yes, yes.
So, beneficiaries, Big Four agenda, are they expected to be main beneficiaries in this budget?
Yes, they are going to be the main beneficiaries. When you look at Vision 2030, we have medium term 3, 2018 to 2022. The focus is the Big Four agenda. So we're talking about agriculture, we're talking about manufacturing, universal healthcare, and housing. For us, where I sit, food security is very important. When you look at Kenya, is a signatory of Maputo Declaration.
Yes.
And under the Maputo Declaration, all the signatories, all the states that are part of Maputo Declaration, are supposed, they vowed really to allocate a minimum of 10% to agriculture. For us as a continent, to alleviate issues of hunger and issues of food insecurity. This we've not been doing as a country. In fact, when you look at allocation to agriculture, it's been really below 10%. And hopefully, now with the Big Four, that identifies the Big Four agenda, the issues of famine that we see year in, year out in this country will be a thing of the past. I'm just hoping that that money will be utilized well. Galana Kulalu was a very noble idea, and it's one of those flagship projects under the food security pillar to be able to ensure that a bigger part of this country is under agriculture, is irrigation. And what we need to do is, as we've been speaking, is accountability mechanisms. Yes, this money is here, but can we ensure that it's accountable? So long as it's not accountable, so long as we can't account for this money, then the big four will be a mirage.
Will not be.
It will be a mirage.
Now, before you, because the issue of the big four agenda, we've said agriculture is a noble idea, especially the Lalu being a flagship project. But now let's also talk about the issue of housing. We already know that the courts have already given a stay, you know, in just for the 1.5, the implementation of the 1.5 housing levy. How do you think the dynamics? Yes, we've already set up the Kenya Mortgage Refinance Company to help the issue of mortgages, provide liquidity and guarantee to financiers to help people actually get these loans to take up these houses. But hey, that is not enough. It's a drop in the ocean because the contribution through the 1.5 housing fund levy is no longer there because of the matter in court. What do you think Rotich is going to be doing in as far as housing project is concerned?
Well, I think many Kenyans, first of all, were forced into contributing towards housing. Yes, we understand it's a burden to all of us, but hey, who said I want a house? Maybe I already have a house, but I'm contributing towards 1.5. I think what the government did not package is to what sense, even if I was contributing to that 1.5 without necessarily benefiting me, it did not package itself the offer good, so that I'm trying to alleviate poverty. You know, they slumped the Kenyans with that 1.5, and that's why it's in court. As to what funding the big four, I think it's a question of government policy towards partnering with the private sector, making affordable the inputs. So I'll want to look at it in terms of incentives towards facilitating the inputs, the cost of building materials, so that it makes affordable, so that essentially the housing becomes affordable. So if cement continues to be high, the cost of stones and local material, if you are importing everything from China, including hinges and screws and everything, don't we have capacity to manufacture and to get those inputs, raw materials locally? Yeah, we see, you know, so what are some of those alternative materials or incentives we can give towards the building sector, so that we incentivize instead of saying all Kenyans contribute 1.5 towards funding that. I think it's a question of laying the necessary and conducive environment so that there be enough housing and affordable housing in such
locally sourced locally. Now, universal healthcare, there's been a lot of debate. The issue of, yes, we want to attain universal healthcare, but now the issue of affordable health services, especially when it comes to medicine.
Yes.
Are we expecting something in as far as medicine, syringes, and other issues are concerned? Because I remember during the last year's budget proposal, there were some cuts on medicine, and so are we expecting such?
I think given that Big Four is the fulcrum of this budget, we expect a lot on universal healthcare. Last year we had the Linda Mama program that came into being, and as we've been saying, there's been a lot of spending on recurrent, even in the healthcare. We've done our own study, even at the county level. A huge chunk of allocation to health is going to paying salaries and to paying bills and all that. So we expect now this budget to really focus on infrastructure bit of health. And the infrastructure bit of health is now the issue of syringes, is the issues of drugs, is the issues of even building more hospitals. There's a time I watched a documentary where in Baringo, where people had to walk for kilometers to a nearby dispensary. Those are the infrastructure issues that we expect to come during this year's budget.
So to move away from recurrent expenditure and focus on development. That is what you guys want.
No, but I also wanted to point out, I think the focus on curative healthcare is not going to assist much. We need to focus more on preventive. Because increasingly communicable diseases like cancers are really hitting into ourselves. and I think it'll focus more as we go to the health, to universal health coverage, insurance, and others. We need to focus more on preventive. What are those factors that are really increasingly causing pain to Kenyans in terms of curative? Need to deal with counterfeits in terms of sugars and others. You know, the other time we were talking about mercury in sugar.
Yes, yes. And that report just
it
went under. We just don't know what happens to this report. They come out,
because
they just die out at some point. Now, as we come to a close.
Before that,
let me just
the curative.
The curative.
Yes, the curative. Recently, I think it was this week, the health committee of National Assembly gave some interesting statistics that approximately 10,000 Kenyans are moving out of this country seeking for Medicare.
Yes.
That is a very sad statistic.
Yes.
It means that we've kind of lost confidence in our health infrastructure, in our health system. So we need to do a lot, and I'm expecting this budget now to refocus on health because of the percentage that we pay.
Yes.
Even the middle class, the percentage and the amount you pay supporting your, let's say, your mom, your aunt, and all that, it is a lot. We can only do much, but if we have a system that is working, if we put money in the health system, I think we'll reduce that number of 10,000 Kenyans going out, and all of us will now trust and have confidence in our health system.
Very well put. We've seen people moving out. And also it also plays a key role on brain drain, because our nurses and doctors prefer working overseas and working here, because, I mean, at the end of the day, you're after the shilling. Now, as we come to a close, the gaming and betting industry has really been receiving the short end of the stick in as far as the budget 2019, or rather the budget planning proposals, or gaming tax, or all that. Do you think they're going to get more? They're going to be focused on this year, for the next financial year?
For me, before Hillary comes in, it's been a mix of between raising taxes. It's a type of sin tax.
Yes.
Because
actually, I think it relates to the alcohol and the cigarettes. Yes. It actually, gaming now fell under sin tax.
It's a type of sin tax, because if somebody is in the village, you find so many people. If he's addicted to gaming and betting, regardless of the amount you put there, that person will be able to still play that game. But there's also the other moral bit of it. If I remember, was it 2 years ago when we introduced that taxation on betting industry? Yes. The issue was our youth
are getting addicted.
They are becoming lazy. They are not now looking for jobs. They are saying, okay, if I'm able to place a bet on this particular game, I'll be able to get 10,000, I'm sorted. It was moral versus ability to collect. Of course, we want to raise tax, but we need to look at that industry. It's been able to support a lot of our other industries, like sports. Yes. When you look at sports associations in Kenya, they are now being supported by some of those industries. Betting firms. So we need, it's a bit of balance. It's a bit of balance.
Betting. I don't know if you guys are going to be watching the AFCON. I don't know if it's going to be on betting.
Maybe.
It has to be. But you see, the question here, as you're saying, is a moral issue. What is driving people to rely on betting and not work? It's a question that we need to address as a country. People, because essentially there was no work. Unemployment rates have been high in this country, and that's why people are either resorting to betting and others to other frustrated kinds of things in the society. It's a question that policy now should address, and not just trying to slap betting. I think we allowed it. It's here with us. We cannot kill it with tax.
Do you think they're going to escape this afternoon?
Maybe not.
They may not escape.
Yeah, for me, they might escape because they've been doing a lot of lobbying behind the scenes, and they are also able to showcase and say, look, we are supporting sports industry, we are supporting these other sectors. Yes. So there will be a balance. For me, they might escape.
They might escape. They mightn't. Now, as we come to a close, I'd want to digress. Being in a business environment and the economy, talking about the projections, the review of the economic growth, downward, upwards, left, right, and center, there's a question that has been milling in most people's minds, is the issue of the interest rate cap. We've seen the banks have said that, hey, this regime is not competitive enough. It goes against the best practice. It has affected the way we do business. People on the other side are saying, hey, at least now I can go to my circle, I get my money from my... What is your take as we come to a close? Elias.
For me, and we have had this discussion since 2015, we'd reached at a point where the interest rates were at all-time high. And in fact, some of the banks were taking advantage. That's what most of consumers were raising. And the major idea, the main objective of coming up with the interest rate caps is to be able to bring sanity in the sector, to be able to cushion the consumer who's that person who's going to borrow from the banks. Recently, there are statistics now showing that there's a decline in private sector credit, and they're attributing that to interest rate caps. I beg to differ, because when you look at the decline in interest rate in private sector lending, it started way before we introduced the interest rate capping. What we need to do is, for me, of course, World Bank, IMF, have been pushing for removal of this cap on interest rates, but we need to give it some time, because it's barely 2 years. You can't introduce a cap, then after 2 years we say this thing is not working. Let's give it like 5 years, see how it, 5 years, 6, 7 years.
Everyone who has a bank loan is just nodding yes, Elias.
To see how it works before we say remove.
That's the question of banks, can they self-regulate? That's a question
that's
that
the issue.
The CBK governor actually posed. No one answered. Hill, what do you have to say?
Well, I support the cap, though it goes against the principle of economics and stuff like that. But as a country, we had reached that a point in time where we needed to check ourselves. I think someone said we are a highly capitalized country, and our banks are making supernormal profits as compared to the rest of the world, which is not bad to make profit, but make it in a civilized and normal way.
In a godly manner.
So to speak. But I think increasingly, because there are quite a myriad of factors that are causing liquidity crunch to Kenyans, and we need to, if we address those and have money flowing in the economy, maybe we may see increase in terms of focus to loans, actually the bank should be able to lend when the government stops borrowing exactly crowding out the private sector within their local market.
Okay. Well, those have been our guests this morning. That is Elias Wakesi, who is an economist, public policy, and Hilary Onami, who is an accountant, governance, and an expert at ISPAC, saying that indeed ahead of the budget, so much to look out for. Yes, the gaming industry might just fall into the bracket of sin tax, but hey, they said, Elias on this other side has said that they've done really so much lobbying, saying that they've supported SRCs and social corporate responsibilities that have helped grow different sectors, especially the sporting industry. But yet we are yet to see, remember that the proposed budget is deemed to be 3.08 trillion shillings, with the taxman charged to get a revenue tax collection of 2.1 trillion shillings. Remember, KRA has been missing its targets. So what options are out there? We'll be here. KBC Channel 1 is going to be televising that live, so you'll be able to interact with us. Thank you very much for keeping KBC Channel 1. Thank you very much once again for watching Good Morning Kenya. Evans Juma, I will not end this broadcast without reading your tweet here. Is that you say, the huge pending bills strain the relationship between suppliers and government. We support the proposition that it would make it punishable offense. These bills are crippling small businesses and even make them lose their livelihoods. Thank you very much for keeping it KBC Channel 1. You have been watching Good Morning Kenya, and this morning we were putting the budget 2019-2020 into perspective. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you
for your feedback. Maybe we can do the post-analysis after we hear what the Cabinet Secretary Henry Rotich has to say.
Thank you. Sure.
Have a pleasant morning, but remember, we are not done here at KBC Channel 1. We have so much lined up for you this Thursday.
Thank you.